This is FE Peer Review. The date is December the 27th, 2021. Grout A1 long distance observation over Lake Winnipeg. Refraction ignored again. The YouTube algorithm, in its wisdom, decided it should promote a flat Earth video to me today. So nothing has changed. They're still doing it. Anyhow, it's an old video. It's from May of 2020. Somebody I'm not familiar with, Grout A1. I enjoyed the video in a way. It was a pleasure to see somebody actually make an effort to try to document their work reasonably well for a change, instead of just sort of pointing a shaky camera at something and say, oh, look, looks flat. So what we've got here is a water tower on an edge of a lake, trees below, 140 feet. The lake is Lake Winnipeg. We've got 16.69 miles across the lake. The author of this video put the data into a Earth curvature calculator and determined that with the target hidden height of 150 feet, the entire water tower, which is 140 feet, should be hidden. Of course, they used a curve calculator that does not incorporate refraction, which we'll come back to. He was then careful about his setup. He measured carefully the height of the camera. He made a point of setting the camera perfectly level by using this tube and putting a level on the tube. And then he went through the process of videotaping the whole thing, zooming in on the tower in the distance. I'll find a good clean image. The best one I could find here was at about this point. So here we are zoomed into the maximum extent, and we do definitely see the top of the water tower. We see a little gap here, and we see a dark band. Now you'll see that this gap here is approximately the same size as the dark spot above, and then there's the band below. If we go back again and look at the water tower, we see that there's the tank, the space between, and then the trees. So that's what we're seeing. However, it's interesting to note that the space between the bottom of the tank and the top of the trees is approximately twice the height of the tank itself, whereas in the refracted image, it's barely the same amount. So there's a great deal of compression happening in this imagery here. When you get this kind of extreme refraction condition, you can get both an extension and a compression of the same object happening in different parts of the object or from one moment to the next. And this is extreme refraction conditions. I'm going to play a bit of this video here, and you can just look at how much atmospheric movement there is, kind of shimmering effect that we see from the air, the currents of air, and the differences in heat between the different air currents. See all that? That's all a sign of heavy, heavy, heavy refraction condition. Now, the observation's being done over a frozen lake. So, well, before I get into all that, let's just take a quick look here at putting the same figures in, 1.875 feet for the observer height, 16.69 miles for the target distance, 140 feet for the target size. If we say zero refraction, we get 150 foot hidden. The top of our 140 foot tank is just below the horizon. If we go with standard refraction, K equals 0.17, we can see some 18 feet of the tank, standard refraction. Now, we clearly saw more than that. We were able to see down to the treetops. The conditions definitely suggested a very strong refraction. So what's the issue there? Well, let's take a look. Here's a couple of things worth noting. Let's start with this page. Above a surface that is cooler than air, for example, ice and water, you can get refraction coefficients greater than K equals 1 easily, which means that light rays follow the curvature of the Earth for hundreds of kilometers. So standard atmospheric refraction that's used for normal design purposes in most situations is K equals 0.17. So we're talking about refraction that is roughly 5.5 times greater than standard when we talk about K equals 1. And then on this page, this is from Walter Bislin's blog. If refraction gets greater than 1, even on the globe, the horizon raises above eye level and the Earth appears concave shaped. And that was evident in a photograph that Bislin provided here. So there's a couple of problems here. The author of this video proceeded as if refraction didn't exist. The author in no way acknowledged even that there was such a thing as atmospheric refraction. Now, I made a lot of videos on that subject already, and I'm going to link some in the description. There's a serious and simple problem here. When you do that, you inevitably open yourself up to criticism, because atmospheric refraction is the current accepted science. I have a link to a dozen scientific papers, instruction manuals, design manuals for the telecommunications industry, the US military, that all incorporate atmospheric refraction. They all accept atmospheric refraction. So it is the standard current science. Now, I'm not saying that it's right. I'm not saying that it's right or wrong. You might think it's wrong. You're perfectly free to think it's wrong. So if you do think it's wrong, if you think there is no refraction, and I'm speaking to you, Groutaone, you can't just ignore it and expect for people to accept what you're doing. You've got to address refraction first. You're putting the cart before the horse here. You've got to address refraction first. You've got to show that it's wrong. You've got to change the current science that accepts it. And then you can do your observation and ignore it, because you will have proven that it can be ignored. But unless you address refraction first, you really can't just ignore it and not expect to be criticized for not including it. So that's my message. You're wasting your time doing it this way. You should really be focusing on proving that refraction doesn't exist, rather than doing this kind of an observation on a cold, frozen lake. I'm glad you enjoy ice fishing, because I sure wouldn't want to be out there. So, problem. You've got to deal with refraction. It's not just going to disappear because you wish it wasn't there. You also chose conditions that maximize refraction. Doing your observation over a frozen lake is one of those conditions that's going to cause amongst the highest refraction conditions you can expect to find on our beautiful Earth. And not only did you ignore it, you actually went out and sought a situation where you could maximize its effect, and then you ignored it. That is either because you completely don't understand it at all, which is possible, or because you're being deceptive, which I hope is not the case. So I'm going to assume you just don't understand it at all, and you need to get educated about it. I'm not going to assume you're being deceptive. So you'll find in the description of this video links to a couple of other videos of mine on the subject of refraction and long distance observations. In those videos you will find, well, this video, for example, in the description of this video, I have links to all of these scientific papers and training manuals that include refraction. So these are all great references. The U.S. Naval Research Laboratory, another Naval Research Lab paper. The Nautical Almanac covers it. U.S. Navy Flight Training Manual, Journal of Geophysical Research. So lots of resources there so you can learn about refraction. Title, Refraction, it cannot simply be ignored. Yep, I've been through this before. I called this video Final Statement partly because in it I did also include in, as well as all of these resources, I basically laid out step by step what you're going to need to do if you want to show that the current science about atmospheric refraction is wrong. All the steps you're going to have to go through to reach a point where you can justify ignoring it in your observation. And believe me, you've got a steep hill to climb. Not the least because you don't seem to understand it at all at this point. So you're going to need you're first going to need to learn everything about it before you can begin to disprove it. So good luck with that. And then I got another video here specifically on some papers from the US military, giving some examples of how the US military incorporates it into their training. So there you go. All the resources you need to learn. I encourage you to go through that material and can include it the next time you're doing one of those long distance observations. You may find it leads you to different conclusions about what you're seeing. This is FE Peer Review. I hope you all enjoyed this video. You know what to do. There's a like button down there. And of course, there's a place for comments. So I look forward to hearing from you all. Have a great day. Bye-bye.